So we're using the traditional readings for this time of year. So this is a traditional reading for this time of year. And it's the Annunciation. If you have a look at your service sheet, you'll see just the picture of the Annunciation there by Bellini, and just angel visiting Mary there. So this is the reading for that. In the 6 months of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel said to her, "Greetings, you who are highly favored. The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled by these words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." "How will this be," Mary asked the angel, "since I'm a virgin?" The angel answered, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. So the Holy One to be born will be called the Son of God. Even Elizabeth, your relative, is going to have a child in her old age, and she who was said to be unable to conceive is in her 6th month. For no word from God will ever fail." "I am the Lord's servant," Mary said. "Let it be to me as you have fulfilled." Then the angel left. You know, the thing that always strikes me about the whole Annunciation thing is the humility with which Mary accepts the angel and what she's saying. You know, the angel comes to her and says, "You've found favor." She doesn't go, "Yeah, I found favor with God. I'm absolutely top of the world." And she says, "You're going to give birth to the Son of God." Fantastic. Immediately posted on Facebook that she's going to be giving birth to the Son of God. Let's have a prayer meeting. Let's get everybody round. We have to work out what the communication strategy is as to how to do this. But it's totally different. It's a complete sense of her heart totally being open to God. And she says, "Let it be to me as you have said." And she accepts it with that incredible degree of humility. And I always think that humility is the compass that we should navigate our life with. It's that which shows us where to go next. Last week we were talking about the idea of prophets, and we were talking about the fact that, some people get up and, say stuff that's supposed to be happening, and, they think they're absolutely 100% right, and they go and they make sure everybody knows they're 100% right, and they, get into their heads they're 100% right. But the one thing it lacks, that decision that they're right, is the humility to actually be willing to consider the possibility that they might be wrong. They don't know how to respond. C.S. Lewis said a lovely thing about humility. He said that humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. I think that's interesting. Not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And I think some politicians today could take that on board as a possibility of a guide in terms of humility. And what the whole thing does require, it requires an open heart. It's something that doesn't necessarily come from your mind, it comes from your heart. And Myrna Ray stood up last week and said that from her perspective, the one thing that would change things in the world is if people spoke from their hearts to other people's hearts. Because when you do that, you get that feeling of all being from the same place, that our hearts are united in that great consciousness which does exist in the world. And the heart is different from the mind in that it actually requires feeling. There's a great image in the whole Christian tradition of the bleeding or the wounded, Christ's wounded heart. And it's the sort of heart of love. It's called the Sacred Heart. And the Sacred Heart is depicted as a flaming heart with a shining light pierced by a lance wound, encircled by a crown of thorns. And that sort of heart is the heart that's willing to be wounded. And the humility comes in that willingness to be wounded, the willingness to have our hearts broken open for each other. And that's not a heart that's hard, it's a heart that's soft. You know, when the angel says to Mary that she's going to give birth, her response is that she is greatly troubled. And that is the wounding in her heart. That's the humility that you have when you speak to people from a place where you're not trying to control circumstances. You're just uniting in your hearts with those people. And then Mary was you had to have had an incredibly open heart to receive that from God. Now, we don't know what the situation was when an angel actually appeared in her space, but what is clear is that the family received a message that something absolutely extraordinary was going to happen. And if you look at her circumstances, they don't change. She's still, by the time of the birth, going to Bethlehem to actually be registered for her birth. She obviously, hasn't got anything more physically than she had beforehand. Her heart is still very much open. And when we speak to each other, so often we speak from our minds. It's our minds that make up what we're going to say. And we speak mind to mind a lot of the time. And what a difference it would be if we spoke heart to heart. I've been trying to do that recently. Of those of you who have been here for the last... Normally when I do a talk here, I'll have written everything out. It's normally 2,500 words, and I write it out, and I stand here, and I read it out. And I suddenly realized that it stops a communication from the heart if I'm just reading something. It stops a spontaneity of a relationship that may come from me speaking without those notes or without what's going on. It does feel a bit like walking out on thin ice. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But it does mean it keeps me honest. It keeps me truthful. It means that, it isn't something that's prepared. It's something that's open, and it's a dynamic. In the conversations that we have, we will have a conversation again here in the chapel a bit later on, but in the conversations that we have, we're trying to speak heart to heart. And what we're trying to do is to respond to each other in those conversations. And in responding to each other, we collectively move the idea on. What Myrna Ray said last week about, speaking from the heart, creating an experience of unity, touched me when I heard it. And then as I was thinking, preparing what I was going to do, it seemed a natural thing to speak of the humility of the heart. And I think, in our lives generally, we're very controlled in the way that we behave. We want to be right in what we're doing. We want to go out. We want to make things happen the way they ought to do. And we're less spontaneous. Less of the time are we willing to just see what comes up. Just see how it works. Just have the heart be at the center of what we're doing. And I think that, the whole story of Christmas is we're waiting for that light to appear, the spiritual, the enlightenment to come into our lives. A lot of that is controlled by our minds. We think that if we meditate for a certain amount of time, or we pray for a certain amount of time, or we turn up, or do things like that, then it will happen because of that. And we rationalize how it's going to happen. We even operate spiritually, which is why, in a sense, we do a lot of meditation here. Just a plug for the 8:30 meditations we do on a Tuesday, because in those sorts of circumstances, what we're trying to do is to move our attention from our minds into our hearts. And as we concentrate on our hearts, it actually opens up the possibility to receive from the heart as well as to give from the heart. It's a giving and receiving. There is a listening involved as well as an engaging. There's a listening. It's a two-way process. And that is the nature of that humility. When I was doing some research here, I came across, a lovely reading from the Tao Te Ching, which really talks about emptying the thoughts. This is number 16. Empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return to the heart. Each separate being in the universe returns to the common source, the heart. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, which is that unity of consciousness, you naturally become tolerant, disinterested, amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a king. Immersed in the wonder of the Tao, you can deal with whatever life brings you. And when death comes, you're truly ready. It's our fear that stops us coming from the heart. It's our fear of death that stops us being ready for death to come. And that fear is what causes the confusion that we have in our lives. If we were able to, you can't get rid of fear when it's there, but you can be with it. You can feel it and allow it to be there and recognize the fact that you're having those feelings, and then come from a place of openness or a place of the heart, whereby when you interact, you're not coming from that fear. And so much of the world's problems today are fear-driven. If you look at the fact that if you look at the defense budgets of the entire world and you put them to feeding the world, there'd be no problem in giving everybody in the world enough food to eat. But what stops us is the fear. We're frightened of what someone else is going to do to us, so we create those defense budgets. And fear is controlling the circumstances that we live in the world. And it is through the development of the heart and the development of an understanding that we're all in this together that reduces the level of fear, that enables us to see, as I've often said, that, China's problems are our problems. Our problems are China's problems. And what would it be like if we did go out and solved each other's problems? Where the biggest question you could have, the most important question, I think, in the world is, how can I help? That's the question to ask. And it's about the fear that hardens the heart, the fear that we have of being done to. But when our hearts are open, then we're able to respond in a different way. And to have our hearts open is something that comes from education, the understanding of that unity of consciousness. And it's not something you can tell people. You can't tell people that, the world comes from a unity of consciousness and we are a part of that and we are each expressions of that same unity of consciousness. That's not something you can tell people. It is something that you can enable people to experience. And when they experience that, then it totally transforms their behavior. You see it when people, have big experiences on the spiritual side. It changes their behavior. And, when I look out at the world's problems, they're just ideas fighting with each other. Even, ideas that we think are great ideas. They're still, ideas fighting with each other. And that combativeness still exists. And I sometimes despair at the fact that, we're going to get, say, whatever country one is talking about, we might say, we're going to get the people that we like are going to go into power. But the trouble is that, we just have different ideas, and you're coming from the same place. That old thing that Einstein said, that a problem cannot be solved from the same consciousness that created the problem in the first place. So what we need to transform is the consciousness that we're coming from. And that is a transformation of the heart. And it's a transformation that requires humility. And I came up with something, how do I, what are the best ways that I can develop humility? Well, I came up with a checklist for humility. First of all, and again, I think politicians might like this, invite feedback on behavior and listen to the feedback. Turn failures into lessons. Expect good of others. Take wrongs patiently. Actively submit to authority. Choose to serve others. Be quick to forgive. Be thankful for everything. Purposefully speak well of others. And just to finish, a thing to remember: I am not who I think I am. I am not who other people think I am. I am that God made me. She tells me who I am. Only in her will I know myself. So we have an opportunity just to have a bit of a conversation now about this whole area, this approach to the divine, the approach to life from the heart. I came across this quote from Ian McGilchrist's book, Matter with Things. And he said, the approach to the divine, to God, involves listening to a cloud of unknowing. But there is also a cloud of knowing, which leads people astray. The pride connected with knowing and sensing lies like a blinding fog over the eyes and senses of man. As Nietzsche says, they fail to attend to that sense that's in all of us, which is the cloud of unknowing, because they already think they know for certain it can't be right. That is their faith. So, would anybody like to respond? Just to open it up for a bit of a conversation now. Sometimes we just have a nice piece of silence. Otherwise, if you want to make... Menore, that's great.
I think what I said last week was, our heart is the connection to the planet. And when we feel that connection in our heart, we feel the connection with the all. And we're all connected. So we want to realize that we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah. It's lovely, Menore. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Leslie.
I think that in my life, I've decided about my heart. I've said my heart's broken. I'm going to protect my heart. I'm never going to let that happen again. And then I think I had an experience where the heart spoke to me, and it wasn't happy with me. It's more like, you don't know me. I've grown up. I'm big. And it's the same thing. It's powerful in the humility way that you're speaking of, and it can change whoever's in the face of you, I think. And I think it's a practice, like now, just to speak from the heart. And it gets kind of exciting when it happens, because it feels like it's bypassing the mind. It just doesn't have much to do with the mind. And it comes through the heart. And I feel like I'm a witness of it, as well as having the experience of it. And yeah, I think it's gotten a bad rap. You know, and when I think of politicians, I just picture them saying, stand back, I'm going to take care of this. And the heart is humble. I think it doesn't just, no, I'm taking care of this.
Yes.
It's available. And it's so powerful. And I know whenever, like when you speak, I felt like you were speaking, you're speaking totally from the heart. And even when you write it down, it came from the heart onto the paper, and then you express it, you know. And it just goes so, to such a beautiful, it's warm and it's wonderful, and it wants to speak, but it doesn't do wanting. It's there. So, thank you.
Well, Leslie, you just spoke then, you just spoke there so beautifully. I've never heard you speak like that before. That was just absolutely fantastic. And you're talking about that brokenness of the heart, which is, I have that in myself as well. You know, I'm the not crier, which is why I married Heather to cry for me. But I have that brokenness as well from my youth, and the guardedness that you speak about. You know, I feel that, and that's what stops me, I think, going into my heart, because I don't want to feel the pain again. I don't want to feel that pain. But I think, I have to be open to being rebroken again, because it's then that I can be much more free with myself. And I so appreciate you saying that. Yeah, Jan.
So that whole thing of speaking from the heart, I just wanted to say, when you were talking earlier about that way of listening and engaging with whomever you're speaking to, I'm speaking about life as an improvisation. It's like consensual improv down in Carbondale, and having been part of that. And it's like two of the things that they say in terms of improv. First of all, you're really listening to the person you're speaking with, and you're supporting that actor or that person. So there's that. And then it's like whatever comes up, instead of negating it right off the bat. Of course, there's times when it's perfectly important to say no. But whatever they're saying, you say yes and.
Yes.
So whatever it is, and you can make up all kinds of crazy stuff or fun stuff, or as it's coming from the heart, whatever wants to happen in that moment. And I think it's really scary. And what if I make a fool of myself?
Yes.
And so it's like we're all fools. Yeah. We're bozos on the bus, which is kind of lovely to remember. And just going from the heart from there.
And with your singing, you're singing from the heart. How is that experience?
Well, you do the best you can. Yeah. And so I always have a lyric sheet, because I'm going to forget the words. Yeah. If I'm coming from my heart, it's just like the head isn't always necessarily engaged. Yeah. So it's like, and then if you forget the words, you just, there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, somebody else. Yes. Just say your name. I don't think I know you.
We're just visitors here. I'm Rob. This is my wife, Dominica.
Welcome.
And I kind of had a question about pride and humility. Can pride exist in the heart or only in the mind? And humility, can it only exist in the heart and not in the mind? The dichotomy between that. And just the fact that out in the world, it's so often, I feel like so many of us, our hearts are locked, and we just simply communicate with our minds, and we're all so guarded, I think, in general. And I think that's what leads to a lot of strife in the world.
Yeah. Well, first of all, can I just welcome you both? It's lovely to have you both with us. And what an interesting question. Can you have pride in the heart as well as the mind? And can you have humility in the mind as well as the heart? Does anyone want to speak to that at all? Yes, Bruce.
Well, I would suggest that it could be an and both. Usually we're sort of holistic mind-body kind of creatures. And from for example, intellectual humility, old proverb, man plans, God laughs. So we will continue to try to plan and control. But in this global perma-crisis we're in, I'd add a couple of things to your list of how to be humble. This is intellectual, which would be, okay, that's swell, but what don't we know? And who could we talk to find even more known unknowns? In other words, hey, here's some more things you need to think about, but I don't know the answer. So these days, leaders that say, oh, I'm in charge and I know what's going to happen, da-da-da-da, I'm a prophet. We need people that can ask better questions.
Yeah, thank you. Just say your
The
name.
shortness of life, the preciousness of a breath. My friend Bruce's mom passed. Her heart stopped this week.
Right.
May she rest after a long illness. And may Bruce and his family also heal. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Sorry, Bruce, I didn't know that. Yeah,
This was not scripted, okay? My mom was way past 98, and this was a blessing. It's been a long, long time for Wade, and so she's at peace, and that's great.
Thank you, Bruce. That's great. I just want to go back to pride in the mind. I know someone else with a hand up. Yes, so do come there. Pride. Isn't it interesting that there's an expression which says, her heart swelled with pride. And there is there's a positive aspect of pride, of actually owning the love that you have for somebody. I think there's a pride in that, which is good, which is a different sort of pride to the other sort that we're talking about. And I think also the humility, the mind, I think, can have humility. And Ward always reminds me of the journey, the longest journey we have to take is from the mind to the heart. And Ram Dass always says that our transformation occurs when our heart stops serving our psychodynamics, but our psychodynamics begin to serve our heart. And I think there is a change around where the mind can serve the heart. And the transformation that happens is when the mind begins to serve the heart, I think. So I think it was a really interesting question. So, yes, Bob.
I think there's a certain fear factor from speaking from the heart.
Yeah.
Because like my mother used to say, if you don't have something nice to say about someone, don't say anything at all. So a lot of times, as a people pleaser type of person, I find it hard to speak from my heart, to come out with a real truth because it might be hurtful.
Yes, that's great. She'll go to Dee and then Ward, and Heather might have something to say.
Where's Dee? Oh.
Dee and then Ward, yeah, Dee. Good to have you with us, Dee.
Actually, I've only had one experience, which was very powerful, of having my heart torn open. And it was excruciating. But at the end of that, I felt the agony of the world. It was just overwhelming, the suffering. And then it was so clear that that's how we connect with each other, is through our suffering. And there's humility in that. I think there's pride in thinking, I'm not suffering, or they are and I'm not, or whatever that might be. But amazingly enough, in all of that agony, there was joy. It's a strange place to be.
Thank you for reminding us of that we unite within that. And did you have somebody else?
No.
Ward, I know, wanted to say something.
Not all questions have to have answers. The cloud of unknowing, that to contemplate things, to meditate on things, and put the answer out of our mind and let our mind be open and our heart be open to what the universe, what the ether has, the non-local consciousness that Dan Brown talks about in his most recent book, The Field. The force. May the force be with you.
Thank you. Okay, Leslie and then Andy, and then we come on, Leslie. No, Leslie, I can't not come back to you. I was so impressive. And then quickly, Andy, and then
I'm just having this thought of allowing the mind, the heart, to meet the mind, because the mind just goes on and on and on. And every once in a while, I'll hear my heart. I'll just call it my heart, and it'll say, "What's going on?" And it's almost like the mind goes, who are you?
Yeah.
Give it a try. Just tell me what's really going on here. And it's like the heart is inviting the mind to integrate into itself.
Yeah. Thank you. Finally, Andy.
If we're all looking for a good visualization for this heart concept over the holidays, let's think about the scene in The Grinch when his heart grows 3 times its size and it breaks the mold and it gives him all the power and he lifts up the sleigh. So maybe all of our hearts could grow 3 times as large.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Grinch isn't as big in England as it is over here. I'm not yet familiar too much with it. I know, it's heresy. Anyway, did you want to say anything at all?
No.
No, okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
Listen, that's how great to speak to each other like this from the heart. And if we can do one thing over the Christmas period, it is to be aware of speaking to each other from our hearts and loving each other in that way and nurturing each other. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it.